Hi everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres, and today I am finally getting around to starting a few of my seeds in the house that need to go out in the greenhouse for the winter. Now, ideally, this would have happened about a month ago, but ideally, it wouldn't have been up in the upper 80s for most of this time, which means it's too warm in the greenhouse to put anything out there. So we're running late, but you know, you can only beat yourself up so much. Last year was the first time that we really seriously tried to grow it in the greenhouse. We have grown in the greenhouse and also in an assortment of like row cover sort of environments. Things during the winter before. Spinach, particularly, have been growing for years. But last year I made a really active effort to grow as much as I possibly could in the greenhouse. And a lot of experimentation ensued, and it worked out pretty well. It really did. So I'm going to be planting some of the things that we planted last year that were a super success, kohlrabies. I already have those. If you've been following us, you'll know that I've got a big tub of those. 3 different varieties, 2 from Haas and 1 from Johnny's. We'd grown the Johnny's ones last year. We were very pleased with them, so we're trying 2 different ones from Haas too, just to see a little variety and see who does better what. So they're already situated. We've been wanting to experiment with peas in the greenhouse. We did do that last spring, and it worked really well as a way to get things started early in the spring. We were having a late spring. We couldn't plant anything outside. It was a giant disaster, and we got peas out of the greenhouse. So I have some burpy miscellaneous peas that I picked up at the grocery store, and we're trying them in there. And they've come up really well. 1 or 2 of them are a little wilty, and I'm like, what's going on here? But I watered everybody this morning, and I'm going to step back and see what goes on. One of the things we wanted to grow last year and didn't, is we discovered last year really how well brassicas do here for us in the wintertime. And brassicas, the cabbage family. So that means last year we grew radishes, and we grew kohlrabies, and we grew cabbage, 2 different varieties. We ate them all winter. Now we grew other things too. We grew spinach, and we grew choy sum, which is a Chinese green, and those did really well too. Choy sum is also a brassica. This summer we experimented with emerald crown broccoli and Atlantis broccoli. Now, Atlantis broccoli is a mini broccoli. We didn't really expect the full-size broccoli to do that well, and it did. It actually was destroyed by a plague of squirrels early in the season. But the mini broccoli, oh gosh, I tell you what, we used to live in California, and you've never had broccoli until you've had really fresh broccoli. We had little mini broccolis this summer that were just heavenly, and that kind of reminded us how much we're missing good broccoli, because the stuff in the grocery store here a lot of time is just beat to crap. Half the time it's moldy. It just hasn't been handled properly, and even if it was handled perfectly, it drove all the way from California. So it's just not the same as getting broccoli that you've harvested and you bring it in and you cook it and eat it, or you eat it raw for that matter. So one of the things that Henry said, please, 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 I don't think I've seen him get that excited about anything in a while, grow some mini broccoli this winter. And I said, no problem, I'm convinced. I'm just totally convinced. So what I've done is I've got a seed tray here. I'm not using one of the giant seed trays because these are going to be individual plants, and I want to be able to keep them in here and keep them in a controlled environment until I'm really ready to put them out into the greenhouse. Our weather's all over the place right now, and we're still getting up about 90, sometimes it's closer to 95 than I would like to think about during the day in the greenhouse. We're not that hot outside anymore. We're usually in the 80s. But I want to be able to keep these guys comfortable, and I want to be able to keep them guys safe until they're a little bit bigger so they can tolerate a little bit more. I've got a couple things going on. I've got the seed tray. I've got some, this is actually a Pro Mix seed starting mix, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown because I don't think that everyone needs me to talk them through each seed. Last year, I said that what I really wanted to do was find a way to carefully water these guys while they were still in the house in a seed tray. You need gentle water. You don't want to be blasting the seeds out of the tray or any of that kind of silliness. And last year, what I used actually was these. Now, what I had these for originally was actually when I do ironing. Yes, I do iron. And the reason I do iron is because we do historic reenactment and we wear linen a lot, and linen has to be ironed. You just can't get it as smooth as it needs to be in a tumble dryer. I snitched one of these. I have more than one. And I used it. I would squirt each little cell each day. And it worked really well. But I tell you what, you could build up your hand muscles with that sucker. This year, I've gone to the lazy man solution, or lazy woman solution. I have a cheapy spray bottle, the pump kind, from Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight doesn't know me from Adam except that I spend lots of money there. And I own a bunch of these. Henry bought a stack of them. They were on sale a couple months ago. And we have one that's only used for calcium in the greenhouse, and another one that's used for an assortment of sprays when I need to use insecticide or fungicide or whatever. And I have another one that I'm going to write on in magic marker that's going to say clean, and that means it's only for clean water. And I'll probably write clean H2 on there. So, but all you have to do with these, it's what's cool, is you pump it up and then you spray. And it gives you a nice fine mist. This is not fully pumped up yet, but it gives you a fine mist. It's not going to blast the seeds out. And it solves the problem that I'm in the house here. I'm not going to run a hose in here. This thing breaks your hand. My watering cans don't have a fine enough spray on them, but this is perfect. This will hold a half a gallon, whereas this holds, I think, 16 ounces, 32. Still, lots more in there. And I could pump it up quickly. I don't have to do this. Because when I worked out a system last time I started seeds in here where I was doing a certain number of squirts in each one, and it worked beautifully. It kept them moist, it kept them healthy, but you know, you wear your hand out after a while. So, time to get seeding. Jade Cross, Brussels sprouts. Have not tried these before. Got these from Hoss Tools, and they're a long season thing, Brussels sprouts are. And they're blue. That's weird. Are these coated, or are they actually blue? Well, I don't know. They don't say they're coated. Oh, they are coated. They're treated with Therum. I was going to say blue seeds. 1/4 inch depth. So I'm going to just plop these in here. Got my little thing. And I will be coating the entire top of this with, what do you call it? Perlite. I got that idea this past year from Hoss Tools. They discovered that a lot of the professional growers in their area were doing that, and they tried it themselves, and they found that it really improved the germination rate. Now this has already got a very respectable germination rate of 96%, but the idea that I could help avoid even more problems and increase and maybe maximize. You know, when we see 96%, our brain goes, well, if I plant 10 seeds, I'll get 9. Not really the way it works. Those are big numbers. In other words, if I planted 100, I might get 96. If I planted 1,000, I probably would get 960. You also just might hit the seeds that don't. But I really like a company that will provide me with germination rates. I'm getting to the point, as I've stated a couple times this year, that I kind of don't want to do business with people who won't tell me what's going on, because, you know, it makes me wonder whether they care very much or whether they even know what kind of germination rates their plants have, their seeds have rather. I have a limited amount of space, not as limited as some people, but I'm not growing acreage, and I really, really, really want success. It makes me want to deal more and more with companies that will give me a germination rate and less with companies that won't. I totally understand why companies don't, because there will be people who will say, well, you said 96%, so that means 9 out of 10 of my seeds should have germinated and only 4 of them germinated. Well, it happens sometimes. But 96% gives you a pretty good idea that you've got a pretty good shot at getting a really nice collection. And what I planted here is Jade Cross broccoli, Emerald Crown, and now I'm going to do Atlantis, which is the mini broccoli that we just adored this summer. I planted it in the shade on the north side of the house, which tends to stay more moist because of it's in the flower beds along that side. It keeps it out of the most brutal sun that we get. And I could not believe that they did not bolt. What finally happened to them was the deer ate the top out of them. I had actually planned to go out and harvest because I had another crop ready to harvest, and they could harvest it for me. Okay, I am going to plant some odd things too. That's an experiment. The deer, yes. that's a continuing theme around here right now. The deer ate a lot of the dill, unfortunately. And the problem with that was I still need it. There is a little bit more coming up, but I kind of don't want to rely on that just in case they decide that when it's 5 inches tall again, they're going to eat it. So I'm actually going to grow just a little bit of dill to see if I can get it to come up and do its thing in the greenhouse long enough to be able to harvest some. We're going to have cucumbers for a while yet, so if we could have some, it would be great. Come here, dill seed. I do not want you over there. I know that if I don't get that dill seed out of there, that's the dill seed that will come up. Come here, dill seed. It's going to disappear on me and hide and all those things. There it is. No. Fishing around for a dill seed. There we go. Bonk. Gotcha. If these come up and all that sort of thing, I'm not going to worry about how many are in a spot or any of that foolishness. I'm just going to let them go. These 3 have dill. These 2 are going to have basil in them. I don't expect anything wonderful out of this. I do have a little bit of basil left in the yard. It's kind of an experiment to see what will happen. And experiment means it doesn't always work, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. I know that south of us you can do this kind of stuff and it works great. Which of course doesn't mean it'll work here, but what the heck. I'm going to try it anyway. Worst case, it doesn't work. Not the end of the world. Okay, now Tiara Cabbage. This stuff is awesome. It is by far our favorite. We had tried 2 different varieties last year. We grew a Copenhagen and we grew Tiara. And Copenhagen is good, but Tiara is way better. So I am going to grow a bunch of Tiara cabbage because very happy is not the word that I would use. Ecstatic comes a lot closer. I'm going to put 2 in each of these because these seeds are a little older. And if I get 2 in each, I will split them out. Because I did that last year, because if I put them on opposite sides of the cell, I can usually split them out just fine into 2 different locations. I really want a ton of cabbage. That was one of the things we'd hoped to grow in the garden. I was going to plant really, basically a whole bed. Because we'll eat cabbage all winter. We love coleslaw. We love it in soups. When we get extra, which we don't usually get, actually, because we usually eat it too fast. We love it in making our own sauerkraut. So, you know, awesome stuff, really awesome stuff. And one of the cool things about Tiara is it's very bolt resistant. Even if the weather gets wacky, it takes like an act of God to make it bolt, which is awesome because you know it's going to get wacky around here. We are planting some Bok Choy. I currently have 4 or 5 Bok Choy in the greenhouse, but I need to get some babies started. We'll eat Bok Choy in soup all winter, but that means I got to grow it because the stuff at the grocery store is nasty. I'm only going to plant 1 row of Bok Choy right now, but I want to plant again once these guys are about that big. It has started. The serious planting for the winter garden has started. About time. So all I'm going to do now with these is I'm going to do a quick little whack with this just to sort of settle them in a little bit. I am not obsessed with covering them up. I know from experience that this will work out. If I was growing beans or peas or something, I would be really careful about setting them down because in a climate as dry as ours, you need to have the set a little farther south, a little farther in the dirt so that they will make it. I'm just sort of roughing the surface here a little bit to make the soil settle down around what I've already put here. And I am going to cover this whole stuff with perlite. Now, unfortunately, we also have some sticks in here. Unfortunately, the perlite I have is not as fine as I would like it to be, so I'm actually going to crunch it on purpose. Ideally, you would buy the fine stuff. They didn't have the fine stuff when I went to buy it. So perlite is just expanded stone, and I'm just going to crunch it with my fingers a little bit because I want it to cover the surface pretty well. Ideally, this would be smaller. It isn't. The world will not end. I've used this before, and it worked fine. I hope you found this interesting. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to come back. So until next time, bye.